Crack a cold one. Boot up the system. Bad decisions, baby. Let's ride.
Alright, welcome back everybody to Bad Decisions Gaming. Today, we're diving into something that every ARPG player has experienced at some point in their career of playing. You log into a new season or a new DLC. You're excited to do a little experimenting, theory crafting, however you want to place it. And you create your own build. But then something happens. Within about 6 hours of this new release, the internet is already full of videos titled Best Build for the Season, S tier build you need to play, builds that break the game, etc., etc., etc. And suddenly, thousands of players are running the exact same build. So, today's question is a spicy one. Are ARPG streamers helping the community, or are they quietly killing build creativity? Because in games like Path of Exile, Diablo 2, 3, 4, whatever you're playing, Grim Dawn, Last Epoch, all out there, have we reached the point where most players no longer experiment at all? Let's start with how the meta actually forms in modern ARPGs, because it's not random. There's actually a pattern. A new league or season launches, and like in Path of Exile, players jump in, but the people who start first and start fastest are usually streamers of high-level theory crafters. These players have often already tested builds on test servers, beta versions, wherever they can get their little paws onto, right? Within hours, they start posting league starter builds, endgame builds, speed farming builds, and then the videos start appearing. Best starter build for the league, blah, blah, blah. And it's there. And suddenly, thousands of players are following the exact same guide. And we see this happening even in Diablo IV seasons. One or two builds emerge as S tier, and within a week, they dominate the entire player base. And suddenly, every barbarian is using the same setup, every sorcerer is using the same build, and the ladder fills up with identical characters. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it raises an interesting question. Is the meta forming too fast? Because sometimes the community has already decided the best builds before most players have even reached endgame. Now, to be fair, there are very good reasons players follow build guides. ARPGs today are incredibly complicated. Let's take Path of Exile, for example. The game has a massive skill tree, complex crafting systems, unique item interactions, dozens of mechanics layered together. And if a new player tries to build a character completely blind, there's a real good chance that the build is just not going to work. You might hit a wall halfway through the campaign. You might struggle on some endgame maps. You might run into a boss that you just can't beat. Players know that these builds work. They know someone has already tested it. And for many players, time matters. Not everyone has time to spend 20 or 30 hours experimenting with a build that might fail. Some players just want to get into the end game and start farming. And the guides help do exactly that. So from that perspective, streamers and guide creators are actually helping the community tremendously. They make complicated games easier to understand teach mechanics, and they lower the barrier to entry. Without the guides, many players might never even try games like Grim Dawn Last Epoch. But here's the controversial side of the argument. Now, some players believe that the build creativity is slowly disappearing because when the guides become dominant, the experimentation disappears. Instead of asking, what build can I create? Players ask, what build should I copy? And the mindset changes how the game is played. If you look at a ladder rankings in many ARPGs, you'll often see the same handful of builds dominating the top spots, like in Diablo IV's ladder and all those other ones, Path of Exile and Diablo II, and it's all in there. The community often converges around a small group of league starters. Even in Last Epoch, which encounters experimentation, certain builds quickly become the most popular. Now, this doesn't mean that the other builds aren't viable, but perception matters. So once a player believes that the build is the best, many players stop experimenting altogether. And that's where the concern comes from. Because ARPGs were originally built around discovery, finding weird item interactions, experimenting with skills, creating strange builds that somehow worked. But if everyone is following guides, that discovery process disappears. But now let's flip the argument, because blaming streamers for this might not actually be fair. In many cases, streamers are doing something extremely valuable. They're educating the community. Now, many ARPG systems are incredibly deep, and players often learn the mechanics through the created guides, right? For example, players learned a huge amount about damage scaling and itemization in Grim Dawn thanks to a build creator. And in Last Epoch, theory crafters are constantly testing new combinations and item interactions. Streamers also help highlight builds that casual players might never discover on their own. Some of the most interesting builds in ARPG history actually come from streamers experimenting live. So guides don't necessarily kill creativity. In many ways, they actually accelerate it. Because once the build becomes popular, players start modifying it, improving it, or tweaking it to make it their own. And sometimes those modifications create entirely new builds. So maybe the real issue isn't streamers at all. Maybe the real issue is game design. In many ARPGs, certain skills simply scale better than others. Certain items are clearly stronger. Certain builds dominate endgame content. And if the game itself has balance gaps, players will naturally gravitate toward the stronger builds. And once those builds are discovered, they become the meta. Effectively, an efficiency culture is also a huge role, right? The modern ARPG communities often focus heavily on speed farming, ladder racing, optimal builds. Players want to reach the end game as quickly as possible. And when efficiency becomes the goal, experimentation becomes risky, because experimenting means potentially wasting time on weak builds. So maybe the real question isn't, are streamers killing creativity? Maybe the better question is, are players choosing efficiency over creativity? At the end of the day, build guides aren't going anywhere. They're a huge part of the ARPG community. And for many players, they make those games more accessible. But there's still something magical about discovering your own build, finding a strange combination of skills, items, and realizing this works. That moment of discovery is one of those things that made ARPGs special in the first place. So maybe the answer is balance. Use guides when you need them, learn from the community, but every once in a while, try building something completely your own. Because who knows? You might discover the next meta build. And when you do, everyone else might just end up copying you. And that's today's discussion. So let me ask you, do build guides make ARPGs better? Or are they slowly turning every season into a copy-paste experience? Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Bad Decisions Gaming.
Crack a cold one. Boot up the system. Bad decisions, baby. Let's ride. Let's ride. Mud on the tires, dust on the screen. Late night grind with the gamer fiend. Headset loud, speakers bang. Patch notes, drama all in the game. Coffee and cold, whiskey and wins. From indie builds to world-class spins. Controller dirty, laptop clean. Living that life in between the scenes. No rules, no lane. We play our way from the backwoods to the main stage. Woo! Bad decisions gaming. We getting it done. Country roots with a